Alright. Hi Deepti, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with the intro. And I read up on you and the activities you guys have been doing in Hyderabad. For the sake of the you got them? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Sure.
all right. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so uh, uh, so for the audience, I'll just like to do a brief intro about you. Everyone who is there out there, thank you for visiting us and checking out the section exclusively on incubators. We have with us Deepti Raula today. She's the CEO of VHub, and VHub is a women-focused incubator based out of Hyderabad. Some really amazing things about Deepti. What I've heard is she was the joint director of electronics before, and she also got the company Foxconn in Hyderabad to set up an exclusive R&D center. For people who don't know, Foxconn is the company which manufactures iPhones for Apple based out of China as well. So, Dipti, we are really honored to have you here. It's really great, and the initiative you guys have been going, focusing around women entrepreneurs, it's just amazing. I think there are a lot of promising opportunities out there, and such infrastructure was well needed in across the state of the country, and we're really happy to see that Telangana is leading it ahead. So yeah, without further ado, we can quickly start with your introductory presentation. I believe you can share it. If you really need any help, please let us know.
Okay, so very quickly, thank you for the introduction, and I'll just go on with the presentation very quickly. So, today, as you know, we actually are part of the government of Telangana. We have this government of Telangana initiative as of now, and our focus is purely on women entrepreneurship, as you rightly pointed out. And I'm really happy to be here because we wanted to showcase whatever we do in Telangana is actually something that we are doing for the first time ever in the country. I mean, I think that was evidenced by what we did with T-Hub way back in 2015, when incubators were heard of but never seen, and we were really happy as a new startup state, we were able to create something which became a best practice model. And now, T-Hub has become something that everybody wants to come visit after Charminar. Come see T-Hub. So
that is great. That's a really great analogy.
Yeah. Quickly share the presentation, and it should not take more than 5 minutes. And I think a lot of the participants here, I would encourage a lot of questions because we want it to be more of a Q&A kind of a thing rather than talking about it. So to start with, the way we look at it, it's clear, right? Everybody can view it. If there are any questions, please let us know. And this is how our Telangana innovation ecosystem is today. We created an industry policy which is purely based on people. And that means we are looking at people as different groups. We are not looking at them as one big set of a big group and creating something which works for all kind of a thing. So what we've done is we've actually split up groups into like students, women, farmers, incubators and startups, research and academia, and as well as industry, right? And for that we created something known as a Telangana State Industrial Policy, and it is completely operationalized, and it has created more than 1.3 lakh jobs since it started out, right? And then we also have something known as the focus sectors in the industry, which is technology, life sciences, food, agri, aero defense, logistics, textiles, among others. I don't know, for people who do not know, 80% of the world's 20% of the world's generic drugs are actually made in India, and 80% of that 20% is actually made in Hyderabad here itself. So you can imagine it is one of the biggest pharma hubs in the country, and we have so many. We have a lot of great footprint and research facilities in terms of life sciences, pharma, and healthcare. And the second thing I would like to point out is that before the days of a lot of things that we are hearing about now, long-range missiles and things like that, and Hyderabad was one of the seismically stable places. So we have a lot of defense labs here also, and a lot of precision engineering companies as well, which cater to defense, which are based here as well. So for them to create more players in this sector, we created something known as TSI Pass, which is Telangana State Industrial Single Window System. And the beauty of this thing is that this TSI Pass is that if you're a big mega company and you want to start work in Telangana, once you apply in TSI Pass, you will get an approval within 14 days. And if you do not, on the 15th day, your application is deemed approved. No questions asked. And this is and then given that this is a law which is passed in the Telangana legislature, you can actually take us to court for not clearing the file. And this is something that I would like to encourage a lot of people to use. And if you're a startup, you can use TSI Pass as well. This actually helps with be it land allocation or be it incentives, subsidies, anything else you would like to approach us with. TSI Pass is one way to go. And the web link is simple: tsipastelangana.gov.in. And to enable all the different segments of people and industries to actually, create more of an innovation ecosystem and set of entrepreneurs who actually can enter all these well-entrenched sectors in Telangana, we have created a set of enablers, right? When you say enablers which actually are focused on each of these individual sectors. And so when we talk about enablers, we created a complete end-to-end system. To start out with, we created T-Hub way back in 2015. As I already pointed out, it's something that we wanted to showcase that, Telangana as a new state is ready, and we are ready for the entire country to come work out of Hyderabad, and that is something I feel that we've achieved through T-Hub. Next, we also created something known as RICH, which is Research and Innovation Circle of Hyderabad, which is actually very important because it actually takes a lot of the research that is being done in the wonderful academic institutions and research institutions in India, in Hyderabad and across the country, to commercialization, right? And I think with the COVID crisis, we all realize how important research is and how quick to market is actually important and how much support is needed for these wonderful research that is being done in labs to come to product. And we also, through RICH, we also do a lot of access to IP protection. Because again, as we realize with the crisis, that the strength of any country is dependent on the IP producers. And we wanted to create more, and we wanted to again create a best practice and which is that. Next, we have something known as VHub. And VHub is actually an initiative for women entrepreneurship. And again, this is an outcome of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit, which happened for the first time in India. And that was in 2017. And our government being a startup state for the entire country, we said, let's not talk about the problems that entrepreneurs face. Let's create a solution, and that is what VHub is. And VHub's primary focus is on women entrepreneurship, and we focus primarily on education, validation, support, and creating more women innovators and young girls to get into entrepreneurship. And next, we have created something known as T-Works. Again, if you look at the entire startup ecosystem today, again, I'm sorry to keep on bringing up COVID, but there's a lot of emphasis on, making products, right? Hardware. When COVID hit, what is the first thing everybody needed? They wanted to make ventilators. And for ventilators, we needed people who actually made hardware products, right? Because that is something we all realized as a country that, that is where we are lacking sorely. So actually, T-Works is something that we've visualized and created for the past 3 years. It is going to be India's largest hardware prototyping lab. It is 78,000 SFT of equipment that you can actually use. Be it 3D metallic printers, be it anything else at all. So if you have an idea in mind and you do not know how to make your product into a prototype, T-Works is a place for you. It actually is there. It is a makerspace which is built by the government for everybody to use. It is to create a culture of tinkering. It's to create a culture of making. It's to create a culture of making together. And I think that is something that we all have realized how important it is to make products, and how cumulative knowledge is needed to create a product. And then we have something known as TASK, which is Telangana Academy for Skills and Knowledge. Again, right, for all these, you need talent. You need kids in the colleges, engineering colleges, to actually understand in the technical courses, to understand how to be employable, how to be ready for the world. And that is why we created TASK. And TASK is actually an entity which works with close to 400 engineering colleges in Telangana. And it also has collaborations with Coursera and every other corporate that you can think of to make sure that, every startup, every corporate, every company which wants to do business in India, if they want to set up in Telangana, TASK is the place for you. We will train qualified engineers and qualified people for you at no cost to the company at all. We'll train them at our cost. And to actually make sure that, again, you asked us about a single window thing. So we created something known as TSIC, which is the Telangana State Innovation Cell. And the focus of this innovation cell is that it is going to be the first point of contact for anybody trying to work in Telangana, and they are actually a program management office for us to make sure that anybody who works in wants to work with Telangana gets the right lead and the right contact. And the second role that we envision TSIC to do is take innovation from grassroots to actually take the innovation from cities to the villages and the rural parts of India. And then enablers, what do? We do access to government support. We have a supportive ecosystem, and we focus really on incubation, right? And okay, so we are the first state in the entire country to actually create an entire innovation policy. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but due to the innovation policy, we've been able to create 4,500 plus startups in Telangana. And we also, through the innovation policy, have been able to get government procurement. We have been able to create 7 AICs in Telangana. We have 239 Atal Tinkering Labs, along with a lot of mentors as well for this. And we have 25 plus labs, which are actually getting support from this innovation policy. And then we also have 120 plus GCCs. And then we also collaborate with premier academic institutions in India and across the world. And we make sure that, the innovation policy is the way to go. And very quickly, I'll go through this. We'll talk a lot more in detail, I think, through the Q&A, Rishabh. So for the incubators, currently we provide financial assistance, wherein we actually try to help out with some kind of a fund which can be used to develop the incubator. Next thing is we also provide a lot of reimbursements and incentives which are already part of our policy. And the third thing we do is actually a rental subsidy that is provided for institutions which are wanting to do create incubators. And for the startups, we actually enable them to get subsidies on creating their own physical space. Let's say if somebody's into manufacturing, right? When you think of a startup, you end up with this mindset of creating some kind of a software. But we also want to make innovators think more beyond just creating a software, right? We want them to think about making products which are touch and feel. So for that, they need a physical space. So we actually support them in getting a lot of subsidies there. We also help with the registration and doing business. We also have a lot of big VCs who are part of our funding network. And also we have a lot of corporates who would like to fund through the government as well. And we also provide a lot of mentorship. And then again, other fiscal benefits are something that I think we can talk a lot more in detail as we go along. And yeah, if you want to reach out to any of us, this is our contact information. I'll just keep it on. And I think that's all I wanted to start out with. And we'll go back to, I think, the Q&A, right?
Right.
Yes.
So thank you, Dipti. Great presentation. Hyderabad's been doing a lot. I actually had the chance to visit GES myself, and it was a pretty great experience. Very well curated across the state. So it's just great how entrepreneurship is coming up in Hyderabad, and considering its powerhouses of companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google. I guess the state, the city and the state itself has a lot of talent booming up. So I had certain set of questions around how you're doing things. So just without further ado, to start with it. So can you just tell us a bit about what are your thoughts in the incubation space across the country, and maybe specifically in the state as well? A little bit highlights on what are your exact thoughts. We just want to pick your brain on things, and maybe help audience even engage about it as well.
Yep. So thoughts. I think we are seeing a very vibrant innovation ecosystem right now. Since March, I think it has just gone into a lot of, in a way, a lot of focus and trust right now. But one thing we'd like to say is that as a country, we've been focusing on innovations for quite some time. And as a state, our focus has been a lot more, niche. As in, with T-Hub, we created something which is going to focus on technology incubation. And as an outcome of that, we have about 25 companies which have started working with government. So if you can actually imagine, some startup wanting to work with government, it would have been a little bit of a hurdle, so to speak, right? In terms of procurement policies and guidelines and things like that. Even to get a pilot, that would have been a difficult journey. But with the ecosystem that we have created, we've been able to facilitate a lot of government to startup interactions. Again, that is number one. Second thing is the procurement models that we've created also has been quite helpful. But overall, I think in our state, I think as we speak, we'll be talking a lot more. But I think there's a lot of positivity, energy, and I will say fiscal and non-fiscal benefits, right? How much ever we talk about positivity, if there is no fiscal and tangible
Definitely.
outcomes, there is no purpose at all, right? The startups will not get benefited. But I think we
Yeah,
are
that was maybe my next question. Yeah, sorry,
sorry.
sorry.
It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
good
yeah.
service. So yeah.
Yeah,
So I think we are headed in the right direction, and incubation actually is going in a great way because we see a lot of initially when we started out, everybody was trying to figure out what incubation is, but now as the system has matured, now we see a lot of co-incubation happening, collaborations happening, and I think at the
right.
end of the day, everybody realizes to create an ecosystem, the focus should not be on self, but on the startup that we are all trying to help, and that I think is a great step in the right direction. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. I totally second you on that. The concept of incubation had been really new to this country. I think it has evolved in the last 5 years majorly. I remember, when I was working out, I was working out of my startup in an incubation center. A lot of people just thought that I was just going to some college. It's with a very different concepts coming out there. But yeah, I mean, I see the incubator ecosystem is developing, and I see a lot of even corporates coming together with incubators and doing a lot of stuff. And the statistics you just talked about, I mean, that's just great if there are even B2G, things happening at the incubation level, which is, it is a real catalyst for the country as well. After setting up an incubator, what are the major challenges for, while designing a roadmap of operations maybe? Something like how does the state support incubators? Can you share a bit light on that, for the audience maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a when if you look at the incubators today, a lot of incubators have actually been based out of academic institutions, and rightly so, because they have the necessary skill, the technical support, and the kind of lab equipment that is already needed. And as a state, what we actually do with the incubators that are there in our state is that we support them in every which way that they need, be it approvals with the central government, be it approvals with the state government. That is one thing we do, number one. Second thing is we actually do not get involved in the roadmap of an incubator because that again depends on the research and the thrust areas of that incubator, right?
Right.
So we do not get
Right.
in. But what we actually do is that if an incubator needs support, let's say in connections or in some kind of access to something, we are always there to help out. The third thing is that we also promote that the incubator, which is in our state, immensely to everywhere in the country, and they actually figure a lot in our investment promotions. As a state policy, we promote them a lot in various parts of the world, be it Korea, be it US, be it any other country. We always put our incubators first, and I think that is something that which showcases to the partner also that we are taking the incubators very seriously. And an example of that is CCMB. If you know, today CCMB is one of the places which actually has been doing amazing work since the beginning of the COVID crisis, right? So yeah,
Right.
so yeah,
Yeah, that, yeah, all right, great, great. So Dixie just mentioned about, collaborating with other states. I'm pretty sure, a lot of incubators even see, T-Hub as an inspiring model in T-Hub as well, right? Because women entrepreneurship is greatly being promoted in the state, but, we really want to take this movement across India. So can you tell us, how do you collaborate with other states? Maybe, like if someone has to reach out to you, how do you approach it? Like just say I'm an incubator based out of Jammu and Kashmir, and I want to set up a incubator which is similar to as yours. Can you help us? How do we go about it? Just
actually,
yeah, some thoughts. Yeah, yeah.
Rishabh, thank you. That's actually a very nice question because, see, again, as I pointed out, we have created this entire innovation ecosystem in our state of Telangana to create a best practice model for everybody to replicate and, work on. Because every time somebody wants to start something in the innovation ecosystem, they end up starting from zero. So what we
Right.
want to do is we already did the work from 0 to 8. So we can actually collaborate with any incubator. Let's say you're an incubator from Jammu and Kashmir, which actually is an incubator we are trying to connect with, by the way. Because
Oh,
what we want to do is we want to run a lot of co-incubation models. Because see, when incubators across ecosystems collaborate, the startups get benefited immensely in terms of access to mentors, access to funding, access to new markets, and access to research facilities that may not be available. So the way to collaborate is very simple. Just drop an email to us and we are there. Honestly, that's all. We will not
wow,
be
that
doing anything else. That's it. Let's set up a call and there is not a lot of, hoopla around how do we collaborate. It is just that, let's collaborate because end of the day, we are all here to support the startup. And if it makes
right.
sense, let's just get together.
That is just really great. I mean, really forthcoming and really forward as a policy. And I think whatever best models, best models you have created, I'm sure that would help people across the country. So I'd also like to ask. I'll also jump off to questions from the audience. I think we have a couple of questions as well. But wanted to understand, what is the government mentor model? If you can share a bit, highlight. I mean, you just mentioned about there were startups who got opportunities across the government. Can you just tell us a bit more about it? How, maybe a success story or something like that?
Yes. So the government mental model is actually something that our state has created very uniquely to enable startups from anywhere in the country to work with the government of Telangana. The way it actually works is that given that T-Hub, B-Hub, PSIC, and we have this entire set of enablers, we work with every single department within the government. And one of the things that we've also done in our own government is that we've created a department known as emerging technologies. And the focus of this emerging technologies wing is to scout around for companies which are working in the latest and greatest of technology, be it AI, blockchain, crypto, whatever else. And how do we actually incorporate that into governance is something that we are doing as a policy. So for the government mentor model, it's quite simple. We work with the various departments within government. We collect the problem statements, and then we do a call for applications from startup across the country. And then there is a panel which actually selects the startups which have solutions which are directly tackling the problem statements that are given by the department. And once there is a match, the principal secretary of that department will be a mentor to the startup, and the startup will actually get an opportunity after about 3 months of mentoring to pilot with that department. And I think that is a very unique model because we are fortunate enough to be in a state which actually has amazing bureaucrats across the board, and this is something that we want to showcase how can be done across the country. So it's very simple. For everything, the answer is going to be pretty boring. Just drop an email to us or just reach out to us, and we are there to help. That's about it.
Right, right. So I have been getting a question from the audience. Any ground implementing mechanisms? This is Ramji asking that are there any ground implementing mechanisms of deploying innovative solutions, including maybe validation of government centers for COVID-19, which has been done with maybe VHub or T-Hub for that matter?
Sorry, can you say that again? Apologize.
Yeah, sure. I'll repeat that. She's asking that were there any ground implementing mechanisms during COVID-19? I think she's asking maybe some challenge of COVID-19 which was run with startups, and was there any ground implementation done as a part of the story? Maybe.
So as part of this, I think we actually had T-Hub and Emerging Technologies and the Principal Secretary's office did run a hackathon for getting the solutions which are there in the COVID-19 scenario. And there were 2 to 3 companies which were selected. And I think, again, when it comes down to grounding, while we will extend all the support, the guidelines will come from the ICMR, right? ICMR has certain guidelines, the state government and the health has something. So as a startup and as an incubator innovation ecosystem, we are helping out the startup in the way that is needed. But grounding will again depend on a lot of approvals. So I think that is where we are right now. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think we across, because even Startup India works across a lot of incubators. We really see this felicitation going really ahead. I will also put down an email ID while on this while during this web conference, where we also facilitate incubator connects. At Startup India, a lot of people come to us talking about how to set up incubators, or which incubator do I go to. Because I think incubators also have the focus sector niches and things going around it, where you need to pick an incubator based on your startup. Because I think, let's just say for T-Hub, I think you guys also run sometimes the Qualcomm. You have a partnership with Qualcomm, if I'm not sure. But then if I'm an electronic startup, I choose that. So I think a lot of connects also need to be made, and we are really impressed by how everyone is coming up. Even in times like these, startups are taking the battle against COVID. I will just ask you further questions on maybe can you highlight a bit on how does the VHub model works? Let's just say if I'm a startup and I'm coming to you as an incubator, what do you do with a startup? I mean, at VHub, let's just say I'm a startup. What activities are planned? Are there any workshops or something like that? Can you throw a bit light on that? Maybe.
So VHub is just like any other incubator, but we are primarily focused on women entrepreneurship. And at WeHub, we do not work with livelihoods and sustenance kind of entities. We work with innovation. So we work primarily on innovation kind of focus areas. And if you look at it, the process is quite simple. You apply. We have a robust incubation program, and one of the things that we do at WeHub is that we collaborate with every single incubator in Hyderabad and across the country. And the focus again is to make sure that if you visit WeHub also, we don't have a single lab at WeHub. We are a sector agnostic incubator. We don't have a single lab because we are collaborated with CCMB. We are collaborated with IIT Hyderabad. We are collaborated with WeHub. We already have, which is already there. So what we do is we make sure that you fit into one of our sectors. We are sector agnostic incubator. You're actually doing something which is going to create employment. Number two is that we run a very robust incubation program, which is very especially curated for the startup. We don't run a blanket session for everybody, right? We are a sector agnostic incubator. Number three is that once you apply, we actually take you in post, I think about 3 rounds of pitching. And, that is how the WeHub model works. We are an incubator which focuses on this. And so far, we've incubated about 89 startups which are in the urban tech space. And we work with close to 1,000 women entrepreneurs in the rural parts. And we work with about 150 to 200 startups which are actually outside of the incubation program also. So to be assisted by WeHub, you don't have to be part of our incubation. You can reach out to us for any question whatsoever at all. Yeah.
Right. So, I'm intrigued by, the best policy practices you were talking about. How do you train incubators? What do you do? Like, do you do workshops? Can you throw a bit, can you help us understand? Let's just say if an incubator has to be trained, what do you do with the incubator, let's say, while running a co-incubator program or something like that?
So again, the focus on co-incubation again is purely because, again, as I pointed out, our focus is to make sure that we bring more startups to see how the Telangana innovation ecosystem is, and also work with that state's innovation ecosystem, because we want to create products which work for impact and at scale. It should not be just like because you're here, and the startups also understand the market outside, right? So the way it works is that, let's say if there's a startup which, currently WeHub itself has startups from 16 different cities in the country. So we are collaborating with 16 different incubators across the country. The model is quite simple. We want to take this entire virtual incubation and ground it in an effective manner. So if, let's say, we collaborate with Startup India on, let's say, a startup by probably, I don't know, Swani. So if that is the case, what we do is, given that you're based in Delhi, Swani will actually be sitting out of your incubator, but you and I will be creating a focused incubation program just for Swani. So that is how our incubation model works. And we'll be stepping in at whenever the help is needed, and we'll be stepping in, and that's how the process actually goes with the co-incubation. And the focus again is on virtual incubation, co-incubation, and making sure that the startup gets all the benefits that are needed.
That is great. Yeah. Right. So, at Swani has been really doing a great work on incubators, and I see really jumping her across and talking to a lot of incubators. I would like to understand maybe from the WeHub angle. Do you have any women-specific policies, or maybe policies you want to talk about, which Telangana as a state has for women entrepreneurs? I mean, are there any state policies which help startups specifically focused on women?
So, okay, so I'll first address the question. So we have a lot of policies which are focused on startups. So one of the things that government of Telangana proudly says, and I think this is something that we would like we would like to get on a central level, is that if there is a startup which is based out of Hyderabad, registered in Hyderabad, government will be your first customer, number one. Number two is that if you are a startup which is based in Hyderabad, we actually will make sure that you get access to 25% of the procurement is actually done by startups, by relaxing a lot of the preferential procurement rules, right? Number three is that if you're a women-led startup, obviously these rules apply, but we also have a lot of support mechanisms within the policy itself, by which women entrepreneurs get 1% more interest subvention. I hope you know what interest subvention is. If you have an interest reimbursement thing, you'll get 1% additional interest reimbursement. Even for capex, there will be an additional 20% will be your capex relaxation and reimbursement that can be made. So we have incorporated startups and women entrepreneurs into every policy that we have written. And I think towards the end of next year, we will be having a focused policy on women entrepreneurs as well. But even now, we are actually, given that VHub has only been there for 2.5 years, we are trying to get the best practice model out so that we can create a policy which can be replicated at a national level.
Right. Sounds great. But I think I've been getting some questions from the audience as well, where they want to collaborate with you as an incubator. I would also like to add that we can facilitate those connections. Startup India does a lot of that. I'm putting out our mail ID as well. Maybe you can also put out mail ID in the chat where people could connect if they want to. Or else, Swani, we have a person here in our team which specifically look across the incubators at the national level, and we try and collaborate with all of those folks across the country, right? So coming back to VHub, can you briefly share a bit about the journey, how VHub was started? How did the idea came in? Maybe some steps from your initial journey, or maybe share some mistakes which other people could avoid, something like that.
So so VHub was actually born out of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit, as I pointed out. And since inception, we were very clear that we are not going to get into skilling. We are not going to get into livelihoods. We are not going to get into supplemental family income kind of narratives, because when you talk about women entrepreneurs in India, you end up thinking livelihoods, right? You think that you have to the traditional sectors. So that is something that we've mainly avoided. But a general suggestion or a general practice that we in the government follow for our incubators is that don't try to do everything yourself. That is number one. Second thing is identify the niche that and the thrust areas that you would like to do, right? So if you are good at something, acknowledge that fact and find some other incubator which actually is doing better in certain other areas. And again, the focus should be on the startup and not on the incubator itself. Incubators are just enablers, and I think once we realize that incubators have to look outside a lot more, be more in tune with what everybody else around the country is doing, and try to find collaboration avenues, I think that is the way to go. Otherwise, everybody feels we need to have the best office, we need to have the best everything. But what we've realized as a state is that we need to have the right people in the right places at the right job, helping the right startups. And that is something that a lot of incubators need to focus on. Scouting, training, and hiring the right people to handle the incubation programs. Yeah, and more collaboration avenues.
Right. Sounds good. Let me check. I think there were some questions. I think we have covered questions from the audience. I mean, if there are any more questions. Okay, there's one more. Is there any state startup policy which has like a single window slash channel, access to government? Maybe that's what she's trying to ask you. Any initiatives on that? Maybe the state startup. The question from Ramji is that state startup policy should be reaching to startup communities and incubators through any single window channel. Any initiatives on that? She's asking. I'll reiterate the question. I think what she's trying to ask is, are there any startup communities or incubators which can be a single window, which can provide access to the government, maybe?
So all the government-led initiatives are actually single window. So we've shared our emails. So the way we work is that while we are all different entities, VHub, T-Hub, TAS, TSIC, the reason we are independent entities is because we want to focus on our focus audience. But end of the day, we all work in the same ecosystem. So if you want to reach out to the government, please write to any of us. Our information is already there. It's info-vhub@telangana.gov.in, and we can connect you to the right people if you feel that you need some access. But please make sure that there are certain guidelines that need to be followed if your startup needs to be connected to the government, right? So we will share that also with I think Rishabh, and we can actually send out an email to all the attendees about what are the guidelines that need to be followed. A simple example I can actually give you as to what the simple guidelines that need to be done is you need to actually register with the government of Telangana. Second thing is that you also need to be qualifying as a startup. Number 3 is that there has to be some amount of procurement or something. There has to be some amount of policy or something, or a proven prototype before it can actually be taken into government. if you come in with an idea and request government, pay for everything, I think that might be a little bit of a difficult upstart. So we'll actually directly connect you to one of our incubators, and then we can connect you to government. Yeah.
Right, right. So, taking this opportunity, I would also love to talk about public procurement opportunities which Startup India has also been doing, maybe for the sake of the benefit of audience. If you're a DPIT recognized startups, right now we are getting a lot of pump at government e-marketplace. If you don't know what is GEM, it is kind of a one universal marketplace for government organizations or any other organization that follows GFR to kind of procure things from without going for a tender or something like that. I don't know the exact specifics of it, but you can actually visit our website, which has highlighted all of these things. We have been getting a lot of sellers on GEM who have sold and got a lot of traction, and these are specifically startups. I mean, if that's, I think, one of the easiest roadmaps to kind of go into if you want to get pilot opportunities with the government and if you have a validated product.
Yes.
And also, Startup India runs a lot of challenges with corporates, with governments on our portal where you can collaborate and get access to pilot opportunities. So yeah, I mean, these are the things which there are a lot of things actually happening in the public procurement space, and I think overall the national ecosystem there itself is evolving because government itself can be a major occupier of the startup ecosystem. So going forward, what do you think about about the whatever impact, whatever efforts the government has been doing? Dipti, can you, because you're one of the leaders who is kind of leading the whole startup ecosystem across the country, can you tell me more about, where do you see this going? How these efforts would be translated? Is there a particular vision you have in mind, maybe? Like, something which you would like to share with us?
So, I mean, you're rightly. I think Startup India has actually enabled a lot of companies to, be suppliers to government, and I think that is something which is actually not very simple. It is a very difficult process, which I think Startup India has made it super easy for a lot of companies to be a part of the procurement. But this is a step in the right direction, and more startups should get opportunities with the government. But one thing I would like to add on terms, as a government, we are always ready to purchase from the companies, right? Startups. But as a startup, what you need to really think of is that while you feel that your product is going to fit into government right away, you also need to make sure that you have a roadmap which will cater to the government procurement for the next 3 to 4 years. It should not be right here, right now kind of a thing, but it should be more like, there should be a proper sustainability roadmap. Number two, can you actually scale for impact? That is one more thing a lot of startups do not realize. If they say, you get me this opportunity and that opportunity, the point is how much are you able to put in as an effort from your side to scale up really fast. That is one more thing that the startup needs to take care of. Number three is that how competitive are you compared to a established player is one more thing that a lot of startups need to kind of look at. So I think if these three areas are something that startups and incubators which support the startups can work on, I think any startup can be a supplier to government, and governments are much more keener to procure from startups than established players because obviously, right, there is a cost benefit, and also you get a much more up-to-date model of whatever it is. And the third thing is that you get something which is made specifically for you, and the team is enthusiastic, and it can actually help government also be much more agile. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been getting, we just got one more question from Mr. M.R. Chaudhary. He's asking, does the Telangana as a state have a separate policy for grassroots innovation? Because identifying a grassroots innovation and promoting Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities of India has been the biggest challenge. As mentioned earlier, that TSIC majorly works in particular segments. What outcomes on promoting innovation in Tier 2, Tier 3 regions of Telangana, So, I mean, in Telangana. So, yeah.
So, as the question was asked, yes, we've created TSIC to work on grassroots innovation, and the mandate for TSIC is to make sure that innovation and entrepreneurship can be democratized. So, one of the things that they've been actually doing as a pilot is actually running a lot of working with a lot of ATL labs and also Atal Innovation Mission mentors to kind of create an understanding of the concept of entrepreneurship, and making young people realize that what does innovation actually mean. Like, when you say grassroots innovation, what does it mean? I think that is something that they've done. And coming down to VHub itself, I'll speak about VHub now because we've done some work in that. So what we've done is, as VHub, we actually worked in 7 districts across Telangana. So our focus was on making sure that, we identify women entrepreneurs in rural areas. So when you think of a rural Indian woman, what is the first thing that comes to mind, Risha? Who is an entrepreneur? What would she be making? Be honest. That's okay. Please.
Maybe she's doing something with pottery, or maybe something cooking, something like that.
Yes. So surprisingly enough, we also had the same notion, because we said Indian women, tier 2, tier 3 cities and entrepreneurship. And we were very surprised because we actually had women entrepreneurs in Suryapet, which is about 120 kilometers from here. And she actually is in sericulture. She has a revenue of 4 lakhs per month.
Oh man,
And then
that's
we have
amazing.
a lady from Warangal who's a PhD in pharma, and she's actually creating nutraceutical company, So that is the kind of work that we've been able to figure out. So it is not that innovation and entrepreneurship is not happening in the rural areas. I think as innovation enablers, what we have done in our own government is that we change the way we looked at rural innovation.
Right.
So it is
Yeah.
not payoff, we are uplifting somebody. It is about how we are actually able to take that and take it to scale. And that is how we actually see our work. So coming down to our work, we actually conducted boot camps for 3,500 women in 2019 across 7 districts in Telangana. And 1,240 of them applied for incubation at VHub. And we selected only 30 entrepreneurs to be part of our incubation program. And they are actually, very few of them are, I'm happy to share, in the field of pottery or cooking. And many of them are actually into sericulture. They are actually into cold press oils. They are actually corrugated industrial, paper boxes, and they are able to create employment. So they are
Right.
able to create employment locally. And once an entrepreneur creates, the focus of all of the Startup India initiatives and Government of Telangana initiatives is to create more entrepreneurs at a ground level. And this in turn will actually make sure that there are more employment opportunities where everybody lives, and that will actually take care of a lot of urban evils and urban problems we are talking about in the past 3 months, right?
Right.
So all those urban problems can be solved. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of potential in and I've also been I also have a story to share. Maybe I actually knew someone in Gujarat, and she was building a kind of a cloth from agriculture waste. So I engaged with her, and then I think there are a lot of such stories which are coming outside. And as you specifically mentioned, there are a lot more innovations than just pottery or cooking. So we really need to focus on these segments. I think, right. We have one more question coming in. Uh, okay, so as mentioned earlier about the government support, will incubators help startups with procurement, via reimbursement with procurement, and how does any incubator help a startup with government procurement? If procured would be if procured, what would be the equity breakdown between the incubators and the startup?
So first thing is that yes, government incubators will actually help out with not procurement. See, we are here to get your foot in the door, right? See,
Right.
we are an enabler. We will prepare you. We'll make sure that your product actually matches the requirement of the government department. But we will get you face time with the department, and in the end, it depends on the department and the guidelines to procure yours. And second thing is, as state entities, T-Hub and V-Hub or Rich or T-Works or anybody, we do not hold any equity in your startup. We do not hold any equity at all in your startup, right? So if you're an incubator, if you're associated with any government-led incubator, we will not be charging you any money for incubation. We will not be charging you any money for anything whatsoever. But what we expect is that you actually, create a startup, create a product which actually will end up being an SME and create jobs and create more economy for the state. And that is something that we are actually trying to do. Yeah.
Right. Right. That all right. Sounds great. I think I've covered many questions, and it was a really engaging session. I'm not sure if I'm not getting any more questions from the audience. I think we have answered pretty much all of them. Can you maybe any questions for Startup India? Maybe anything you would like to ask us? I'd be happy to answer that, or we can maybe go for the closing remarks.
Yeah. So I think there is one question that they said, since drone startups need to work with government, what kind of support is provided to drone-based startups? So I think this is a question from Suraj. So one thing I'd like to say is that we have already started working with a couple of drone companies, actually quite a few. Scient is one. We also work with a company called as Thanos in the government. And we also have one company we called, I think they make some drones for spraying disinfectant and things like that. So please get in touch with us. And this totally depends on the kind of support that you're looking for. Is it pilot area? Is it some kind of, trying to get some special permissions to operate in certain areas, things like that? You please get in touch with us and we'll be more than happy to help out on that. Yeah.
All right. So I think, while we're talking, there's a couple of questions which are also coming. There is a question from Venkateshwar Dharmamla. I would like to know how incubation is different from academic incubation from, let's just say, IIT or IISc system.
So again, incubation varies from institute to institute, right? So when you talk about the IITs and IIScs, they actually work on some cutting edge things. Whereas for incubators such as VHub and THub, we are actually here to get you to a prototype and to a market. So I mean, it depends completely on the focus of the incubator on what they want to do with the startup. And as a startup, it is up to you to choose the incubator which is best for you. If you want to do research and more testing and things like that, I think a research incubator is better for you. If you want to actually get into government, or you want to get access to network, and you want to actually leverage and be a part of the government network, you can approach T-Hub or V-Hub or anything else at all. And let's say if you want to get to international markets, you can still get in touch with us because we collaborate with everybody. So again, every incubator is different in their approach, and I think that's all I can say. We cannot say how are we different. You should actually come to us to understand how we are different. We can't tell you. It's a USP.
That's really nice. So okay, I've also got one more question for you, Deepthi. So okay, what is the maximum financial assistance provided for manufacturing R&D, for manufacturing R&D and prototype in the energy sector? This is a question which is coming as well.
So interestingly enough, it depends. So we actually have different. When you say energy sectors, I would be very interested in knowing what kind of energy. Because if you're talking about nuclear energy, I think it is something that is going to be, we need a lot of financial assistance. But honestly, I think it's much more specific to the kind of sector you're in. But we do provide support with prototyping. We do support with R&D. We provide up to 20% of your research cost. We provide access to the labs. We provide pilot areas. We do a lot of things. So I mean, it's much more specific to the question you have. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think there is one more question from Suraj. Does Telangana government provide grants for developing? Developing new tech? That's what he's trying to ask.
Suraj, so the answer for your question is, as a government, we enable you to receive the grants. So we haven't gotten to the point of where we directly provide grants to entrepreneurs or enthusiasts, but we actually work with incubators, given that we have a incubator funding model, which we've used for IIIT Hyderabad and IIT Hyderabad. And, we can actually support you through that. But as of now, we do not directly provide grants to individual startups, at least as of now. Right? Unless it is a procurement thing or something. Because if we provide a grant for you, why are you not providing it for the 20 other startups would be a question that comes to mind. So we work directly with incubators where you are hosted. And if there is some support that you need, financial or grants, we enable that. But we do not directly provide to individuals or individual startups. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have quite a few flow of questions coming in. There's a question from CA Manobin Devasya. Do you collaborate with private incubation centers running as a co-working or an incubation model? That's what there's a question on that.
So we created VHub and T-Hub and all our T-Hubs and all these entities not as co-working. I mean, we welcome everybody to come work out of here, but co-working is not our model. Our focus is on incubation, right? So yes, we do collaborate with private entities across the board for running co-incubation, as long as there is the right kind of mindset behind it. Yeah, not at all a problem. But co-working, we are not into facility management. We are the government, so we do not get into the co-working aspects of it at all. because when it comes to working pricing and all that comes into play, and we don't get involved in that because our focus is on startups, not on building real estate footprint. Yeah.
Right. So there is one more question coming in from Kiran. I was thinking that Leap is a part of VHub focusing on livelihood mainly, and that T-Hub is a technology hub. So my understanding was that VHub takes in all non-tech startups set up by women or men. Please clarify. So he's asking, I believe, I think Leap is a part of some program or maybe something.
Yeah, I think Alip is a women's organization like FICCI and CII and other entities. So we do not, VHub is actually a government entity, and we focus on women entrepreneurs across the board. And when we say women entrepreneurs, we are focusing on entities which are 51% or more owned by women. And, it can be tech, non-tech, whatever else, but we do not do livelihoods and all that other work. Yeah. But Alip is an organization which is based in Hyderabad, and their focus is on micro entrepreneurship, I think.
Right. All right. Makes sense. I think we'll just wait 2 minutes maybe for if there are any more questions from the audience, and maybe then we can go for the closing remarks. Okay. So yeah, okay. So one more question coming in is, do you have any accelerator facility for startups, or any accelerators you want to talk about?
Yes, we actually. Sorry.
So the question is that, do you have any accelerator facility for startups or for existing SMEs to accelerate growth?
Yes, we have. We actually run very focused acceleration programs for for startups. In T-Hub, we run a lot of corporate acceleration programs wherein corporates come to us with very specific problem statements, and we work on that. And at VHub, we work with PNG because they wanted to convert their factory in Hyderabad into a smart factory, and we actually put them through an acceleration program in collaboration with PNG. So yes, we run everything that is needed. And for SMEs to scale, I forgot to mention, we also have a very robust credit linkages program. So if through Startup India and Stand Up India, and there is a lot of schemes or that funding schemes that are available. So we actually enable credit linkages to startups across the board to get any kind of funding from banking partners and things like that. So last year we were able to get about 8 crores of credit linkages, and this year we are seeing with the COVID crisis about 72 crores of funds can be dispersed through our through VHub itself. So that is something that we're trying to do. So if you have any, I know right now is if SMEs and startups want to sustain, they do need some assistance, and with the kind of situation that is going on, we can help out a little bit in credit linkages also. And if you have questions, please do reach out to us. Yeah.
Right. I think that's quite a jump on the growth numbers for sure. All right. I think we are pretty much done with the questions. I think we have no more questions for the audience. I would just like to start off with you with the closing remark, and then we can
Closing remarks. I think a lot of companies and startups and incubators are actually now looking at this entire COVID crisis as they are feeling that it is a big barrier in front of them. But one thing that we have realized being in this system for the past 3 months to the crisis is that I think this is the time where incubators need to really rise up and help startups, right? If you look at a lot of studies, everybody's saying that startups, this many startups have certain amount of money that is there, and it is going to take them only through 1 or 2 months of cash flow and things like that. So I would like to request that all of our incubators, all of us, need to really focus on working with the startups very closely, maintaining social distancing very closely to make sure that the startups actually revisit their business plan. We also as incubators need to revisit our business plans, also focus on what is the new ways the startups can diversify their product. The startup can actually diversify customers. And I think there's a lot of introspection that needs to be done by incubators itself on what is the value that we are adding to the innovation ecosystem, right? If we are not, then we need to really pivot and be more beneficial to startups which are there across the board. I think that is one thing I would like to really request all of us who are here take care of.
Right. Sorry, this question just popped up in my mind as soon as you mentioned social distancing. I can see that I think maybe you're sitting in your office right now. So
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about how VHub is what social distancing practice or, any suggestions for the incubators and how do they open up back after the lockdown? Maybe that is something really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you asked the question. So VHub is a lot more, I would say, use the word thumping and happening during normal times. But with social distancing and with the kind of crisis that is there, what we've actually done is we've completely sanitized the office, number one. And if you look at it, only 50% of us is in the office today. And even in co-working, we are making sure that only one person from a startup is sitting on a VHub if they do want to come here. So I think that is what we are trying to do, keeping people as far as possible physically, but sanitizing the space as much as we can. We closed our pantry areas and things like that. Oh, one more thing we need to point out is that during the crisis, as an incubation center, we actually waived off the rents for all of our incubatees who are sitting on a VHub. Because one thing we realized is startups are already hurting, and rental payment should not be one of the things. So incubators, I mean, be cautious. If you feel that you want to open, make sure you sanitize it well and keep people really far, and close down the pantry and all the cafe areas and things like that. Yeah.
Right. All right. Thank you, Dipti, so much. I can't, for sharing these candid insights all across with all of our joinees. It's just great to see how, the ecosystem is evolving, and we really wish you the best of luck with VHub. We really wish that a lot of such stories which you just talked about from tier 2 to tier 3 cities come out, and we can maybe not just bring them up at a national scale, we bring some product at a global scale, and let's just hope that we will have more and more business orders coming in. I really appreciate you for taking out the time and doing this webinar with us. We really look forward to working with you closely. Anyone who wants to connect with them, I have posted the email ID on chat. Maybe I can post it again. And we'll also send out a mail to all of our audience. We can facilitate connect with VHub, C-Hub, and incubators across the country. It has been a pleasure hosting this session. Thank you so much, Dipti, for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye. Have a